I chose leadership styles as equipment for living for my final project in textual analysis because I've been so fortunate to be in the presence of people whom I considered leaders, and they have inspired me in many ways. So I'd like to discuss the type of lens that I use in my paper, and that's rhetorical analysis, provide a brief interpretation of the text, offer a reason as to why leadership influences behavior, discuss some lessons I learned, and my reasoning for why leadership is important. So, the goal of rhetorical analysis is not so much in understanding what is being said, albeit that is very important. Rather, it's in understanding how he or she is saying it or writing it. To accomplish that, you can ask yourself a few questions. Now, certainly this list is not exhaustive, but it's a good starting point. First is you're always going to want to determine what the thesis is. And that's not necessarily just in speech or in formal writing, but that could just be in casual conversation, water cooler conversation at work. Next, the next question you should ask yourself is, what's the point? What's the point of this interaction or this communication? And who is the intended audience? And lastly, it's important to pay attention to how words are being used, not necessarily just the words that are being used. So, and when I say that, I mean the arrangement of the words. Is the communication formal or informal, and also the vocabulary that's being used. I chose Burke's Equipment for Living because, quite frankly, I resonate with that theory. I think it's really one of the most practical theories I've ever researched. Although it can be a bit, seemingly Pollyanna or omnipresent, because it's really a theory that you can apply to almost any situation. And basically, Burke argues that equipment for living can be used as a navigational tool to help audiences maneuver through life. The definition is a bit broad because he's saying that you can navigate through life, but it doesn't apply to just specific situations or certain encounters. It's literally everything. His writing style is formal, but not in a traditional, sort of textbook approach. He does provide some qualitative descriptions and add personal testimony to his work. And for me, that makes it more enjoyable and more easily identifiable. Now, the two types of leadership styles that I'll briefly discuss is autocratic and transformational leadership. Autocratic leadership is typically defined, or people that are autocratic leaders traditionally are controlling. They receive very little input from their followers or from their audience members. And usually constraint of either words, thoughts, ideas is characteristic of an autocratic leader. Transformational leaders are typically identified as change agents. These people typically seek to inspire and empower others. Think Lincoln and Mandela. For autocratic leaders, you can think of Stalin and Mussolini. Now, one key aspect to understanding leadership as equipment for living is first being able to identify. Identification, as defined by Littlejohn and Foss, is a mechanism to establish meaning for an audience. And once meaning has been translated, then we can then begin to develop understanding. So, with identification, then we can sort of choose which style is most appropriate for any given situation. Now, how does leadership influence behavior? Well, when you think of someone like Mandela, for example, he's considered a transformational leader, but you think about how his speeches influenced and inspired people to act in ways that perhaps they didn't before. They did things like attend marches, and they may have they gathered together and shared ideas, and they may have written articles in newspapers or magazines. He provided examples of sacrifice and of gratitude. And in those ways, people can then see those leaders as role models. And in their day-to-day lives, they can use the examples provided by, let's say, Mandela, to make decisions in, at work or in their daily lives, or they can use it to his particular style as a means to problem solve. And that's what I mean that leadership is a verb, because again, it can either autocratic or transformational. It can, conjure behaviors in us that we may not have known that we've had, or couldn't see ourselves as doing. So personal experiences, my personal hero is my father. I say that because he has purposely and consistently encouraged me to think outside the box and to take chances on myself. And he provided a role model of hard work and dedication to purpose and to cause. And so because of that, I believe that my personal experience, he's a transformational leader, and his teachings have helped me in the past. And looking ahead, I see that they certainly are something that will impact me in future endeavors. And with the onset of social media, I believe that leadership is now, if not now, more so than ever before. Leaderships are needed with the virtual platforms. There's so much out there, and there's so many different influences. I believe that true leaders, whether autocratic or transformational, have an opportunity to reach such a large variety of audiences and people. Now, even though I consider myself, for the most part, a transformational leader, I have at times been an autocratic leader, and specifically in my parenting. There are times when my objective is not always to influence or empower. I should say empower. It's been to instruct. So I think that that's a really balanced way of looking at the two different styles as equipment for living. And I hope that through this brief discussion that you've seen the ways in which leadership can provide equipment for living for you.